Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. Is someone chasing you? If you don't want to die, then come. The barking grew closer, sharper. I grabbed him, turning myself into his crutch, and half supported, half dragged him into the brothel. Emperor Adrian Crown looked at me in astonishment. What are you doing? Saving you. This humble one simply likes meddling in other people's affairs. He had likely never stepped into a brothel before, much less inside one. At the sight of the decadent, wanton scene before him, he shut his eyes. What place is this? A place for pleasure. You dare bring me somewhere so filthy? Affairs between men and women are perfectly natural. Why would Milord say such a thing? Only when I helped him upstairs did I notice his leg was still bleeding. If the men in black followed the trail of blood, they would find us easily. I closed the door. When I turned back, I found him staring at me in surprise. I widened my eyes in equal shock, staring back at him. Elena Vale. I immediately dropped to my knees, lowering my head deeply. Your Majesty, forgive this servant. I did not know it was your Majesty. Why are you here? I was still thinking of an excuse when pounding erupted at the door. Voices shouted. They were searching for a fugitive. There was no time to consider ranks or propriety. When they broke in, what they saw upon the bed were two bodies entangled together. I covered myself with clothing, tears brimming in my eyes, and cried out, "You heartless brute! This servant's hand is still bleeding, and you are already so impatient. If you keep this up, I will go straight to your wife and let her see what kind of man you truly are." I pulled back the curtain. 4 or 5 men stood at the doorway, blades in hand. Shrinking back in fear, I said, "Officers, perhaps you should arrest this lecher instead. Spare this servant from his torment. Look, my hand is still bleeding. And he still wants to mistreat me. He is truly not human." The men outside looked at me awkwardly, unsure how to respond. "That blood, is it yours?" They pointed at the dried blood on the floor. I nodded and raised my hand. Blood was indeed still flowing. They exchanged glances, then hurriedly withdrew. When I turned back, Emperor Adrian Crown was looking at me as though he could not quite believe what he had just witnessed. "Your Majesty, please turn around. This servant needs to change." Embarrassed, he sat upright and turned his back. "You are not like ordinary women." After dressing, I replied, "Does your Majesty mean that this servant resembles women of the pleasure houses?" "That is not what I meant." I smiled faintly. This servant grew up in the countryside. My parents were rough people. Matters such as these were never taken too seriously. As for why I appeared in Luoling, he did not press further. Nor did he mention what had happened in the brothel that night. "How is your arm?" "The wound has clotted. I simply cannot use force yet." His gaze toward me grew more suspicious, more probing than before. To dispel his doubts, I said calmly, "Since childhood, this servant assisted my father in blacksmithing. Injuries were common. I am accustomed to them. This small wound is nothing." Whether he believed me or not, the fact remained. I had saved him. Julian Reed and Emperor Adrian Crown had been separated during their escape. There was still no sign of Julian. The Emperor had been in Luoling for 5 days, yet found no trace of the missing relief funds. "Your Majesty, why not inspect the areas surrounding Luoling?" I suggested. Though there is drought, the city itself remains intact. It is only the villages outside that lack water and grain. He looked at me as if something had dawned on him, then immediately regarded me with suspicion again. How did you think of that? It was not something this servant devised. Upon arriving, I simply observed it. Perhaps your Majesty came too hastily to notice. He stepped closer, studying me for a long time. I do not like people who are overly clever. He had overestimated me. My small tricks could hardly be called intelligence. This servant does not understand what your Majesty means. We followed him to a village at the foot of a rocky hill. It was desolate, utterly barren. When driven to extreme thirst, humans are capable of anything, just as now, a gaunt man, skeletal and hollow-eyed, crouched while eating human flesh. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands trembled ceaselessly as he glanced around in terror. Emperor Adrian Crown turned away, his brows drawn tight. Human nature. Reduced to this. To survive, one will do anything. He was furious. Cannibalism is not something a human should do. That is the loss of humanity itself. I had once done the same. On the rocky hills there were many bandits. The missing relief silver had likely been taken there. The beggar who had resorted to cannibalism received a small sum of money from Emperor Adrian Crown. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he revealed useful information. The bandits were connected to corrupt officials. Emperor Adrian Crown went alone toward the rocky hills. I followed behind. He understood grand strategies, but he did not understand how twisted and treacherous human hearts could be. If he were to die here, all my efforts would crumble to dust. He could die, but not now. Lady Helena Ashford's strange reactions after learning of Julian Reed's movements in Luoling had not escaped my notice. The theft of the relief silver. It might very well be connected to the Ashford family, but I did not know how to tell Emperor Adrian Crown. If he investigated and uncovered Lady Helena Ashford's position behind it all, she would not be able to keep her rank. That would be a good thing. But if he failed to find proof, Julian Reed would fall into danger, and sooner or later, Lady Helena Ashford would demand his life. Emperor Adrian Crown slipped quietly into the village. The moon climbed high overhead, yet even when the rooster crowed, he had not come out. An emperor outside the palace walls was truly no better than a mountain bandit. Just as I was thinking of a way to enter the village, a shadow rushed in. Julian Reed. He had found this place. Indeed, Chief Eunuch Julian was far more decisive, and far more useful, than Emperor Adrian Crown. Once again, he had helped me. Julian Reed knocked the guards unconscious. I walked in openly, even deliberately making noise, clanging and shouting as if announcing my arrival. Julian Reed looked as though he had been captured by me. He stared at me in astonishment. I shook my head slightly. He understood at once and said nothing more. You useless fools. I shouted. Someone infiltrated this place. If my lord loses his head, can you bear the responsibility? The village chief was a thick-bearded man, still half asleep, blinking repeatedly. When he saw my face clearly, suspicion filled his eyes. Little girl, where did you come from? How dare you cause trouble on my territory? The man beside him explained my supposed background. His expression changed instantly. It seemed I had chosen the right direction. Who are you? He demanded. Is my name something you are worthy of knowing? I snapped. Then who exactly are you? What are you doing in our village? This bearded brute was not easy to deceive. Useless, I scoffed. The higher-ups already know about this place. If I had not arrived in time, Chief Julian would have uncovered everything. The bearded leader's face shifted again. He ordered his men to check whether the captured man was truly a eunuch. After confirming it, fear overtook him. Julian Reed cooperated smoothly. you bandits. His Majesty already knows everything. I advise you to release me at once, or you will lose your lives." The bearded man kicked Julian Reed and then turned to me. "My lord, this lowly one knows his mistake. Please instruct us, what should we do?" I turned my back to them. "Her ladyship sent me here in haste to warn you. His Majesty has already dispatched Chief Julian to investigate. There may be more forces behind him. At this moment, we are all tied to the same rope. None of us can act recklessly. Leave immediately. It would be best to burn this village to the ground and leave no future trouble." The bearded man hesitated. "This is the home of my brothers. If we burn it, where will we go? Her ladyship will make arrangements. First scatter and hide within Luoling city. When the storm passes, her ladyship will reward you generously. You will no longer need to live as bandits." They still hesitated, but most were tempted. "Then how do we report to the young master?" That was an unexpected gain. The young master they referred to must be the young heir of the Ashford family. As for the young master, her ladyship has made arrangements. Do not ask further. They nodded, and raised their blades to kill Julian Reed. "Stop. If you kill him, will that not confirm that you robbed the disaster relief silver?" The bearded leader scratched his head anxiously. "Then what should we do?" I smiled faintly. "Someone must take responsibility. Chief Julian is an excellent choice." Julian Reed looked at me with anger blazing in his eyes. In truth, I admired him deeply. He truly was intelligent. "My lord's plan is brilliant." The bandits praised. They fled in haste, without even packing their belongings, leaving behind an abandoned village. Julian Reed let out a breath of relief. He looked at me with admiration. "Why didn't you ask where the relief silver was hidden?" Asking too much would reveal flaws. I untied him. Suddenly, his expression darkened. He seized my throat. "Chief Julian, cough. What are you doing? What is your real purpose?" He demanded. "I only wanted to help you," I gasped. "Nonsense." A tear fell from my eye, landing on his hand. "You resemble my elder brother. I do not want you to be hurt." His hand trembled slightly before he slowly released me. A deep, hidden sorrow flickered in his eyes. "You have an elder brother?" he asked. I collapsed weakly to the ground. "I did. But unfortunately, I will never see him again." "Why?" "He is dead." Julian Reed seemed to recall something. He fell into thought, regret and pain clouding his gaze. "I truly did have an elder brother, but I did not know whether he was alive or dead. That year, I was sold to human traffickers. From that day onward, I never had the chance to see him again." The young master of the Ashford family had colluded with mountain bandits to steal the disaster relief funds. The crime implicated the entire clan, yet Lord Edmund Ashford, to protect himself, did not hesitate to remove the young master's name from the family registry and personally delivered him to the court to confess. Lady Helena Ashford, in the name of righteousness above kinship, personally supervised the execution of her own younger brother. No one in court criticized the Ashford family. Instead, they praised the noble consort for sacrificing her kin for justice. They praised Lord Edmund Ashford's loyalty to the throne, a blessing to the court. They called him Emperor Adrian. Crown smashed his teacup, his fists clenched so tightly that blood dripped from his hand onto the floor. His entire body trembled. Lord Edmund Ashford. That old fox. I underestimated him. "Your Majesty, Do not injure yourself, I urged softly. Tomorrow is long. Matters such as this cannot be rushed. He stepped closer and asked me quietly, "Why are you always so calm?" "Because I do not carry the burdens your Majesty does." He turned away from me, steadying his emotions. When he spoke again, his voice was calm. "I want to know what you think about this matter." "Your Majesty should be patient," I replied softly. "For now, conceal yourself. Wait until the enemy grows complacent, then seize the opportunity to strike. Cut off the route completely. Leave not even the slightest chance for recovery." He suddenly turned back. "Who exactly are you? Why does your Majesty ask that?" He stepped closer. "You appear obedient and fragile, yet you constantly do the unexpected. You appeared in Luoling by coincidence and saved me at precisely the right moment. On the rocky slope, amid the chaos, it was you who uncovered the one behind the theft of the relief funds. And now you speak such words. I cannot help but suspect, you are not an ordinary palace maid." I raised my head and met his gaze without fear. "Your Majesty worries too much. Everything was merely coincidence. If your Majesty does not believe me, you may send someone to investigate. Everything this servant has said is true. I have absolutely no intention of deceiving you." He let out a faint laugh. "You are so certain. Even if I did send someone to investigate, I would likely find nothing useful. Why waste the effort? If your Majesty does not trust this servant, why keep me?" He looked at me with those deep, unreadable eyes. "I want to see how many secrets you hide in your heart. That is far more interesting than killing you." "Is that so?" "I want Lady Helena Ashford to die. That is the condition for granting you the title of one consort. You call it a favor. In truth, it is an order. You cannot refuse. If Lady Helena Ashford does not die, then only you can. And if this servant fails?" He seized my chin lightly, yet the force beneath it was unmistakable. "What is there that you cannot accomplish? Killing a person is easy, but retreating safely afterward, that is not. No matter what method I used to eliminate Lady Helena Ashford, the crime would fall upon me. If exposed, I would become the scapegoat. If not exposed, then not only would the inner palace lose a great calamity, but the Ashford clan would also suffer tremendous losses." He truly knew how to use people, but how did he know that I was not using him in return? To remove Lady Helena Ashford, the obstacle in my own path, Julian Reed came to see me. "If you do not wish to do this," he said quietly, "I can secretly send you out of the palace. You can disappear, live in obscurity, and stay far from these forbidden walls." "Chief Julian, why are you so kind to this servant? You once saved my life. Consider this my repayment. But this is a capital offense. Are you not afraid? That is not your concern." He had lived under a hidden identity for 10 years. And I had fought to survive for 3. I had endured 3 years in the cold palace to ensure I would stand where I stand today. My hands were already stained with blood. There was no turning back. "Chief Julian, this servant will remember your kindness. I already owe you too much. I cannot implicate you further. Please forget what you just said." He grew somewhat angry and gripped my shoulders. "You are seeking death. This servant's life is worthless. If I die, so be it. And your family? Do you not care about them? If you die, what becomes of them?" I looked up at his furious face. My heart ached. Tears fell uncontrollably. My family will not care. They are dead. They have been dead for 10 years. The strength in Julian Reed's hands gradually faded. He looked at me with compassion. If my younger sister were still alive, he murmured, she would be about your age. So that was why, since the night on the cliff when I told him he resembled my elder brother, his attitude toward me had changed. I had reminded him of his sister. When persuasion failed, he sighed, take care of yourself. When Lady Helena Ashford learned that I had been granted the title of one consort, she summoned me at once. Scolding and torture were unavoidable. Your ladyship, spare this servant's life. I cried. I was merely carrying out orders. If I had refused, it would have been death. She narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? His Majesty has no sons. The concubines who conceived all miscarried mysteriously. Therefore His Majesty granted this servant the title of one consort and ordered me to feign pregnancy with a dragon heir to investigate the cause of those miscarriages. This servant merely obeys orders. There is no intimate relationship between this servant and His Majesty. Please, your ladyship, spare me. Lady Helena Ashford was momentarily shaken. Afterward, she gifted me several pieces of jewelry. Handle this properly. She said, you understand what must be done, don't you? She held my hand, smiling, but her eyes were filled with threat. I understand. I was applying medicine in my chambers when Emperor Adrian Crown suddenly pushed the door open and entered. When he saw the wounds covering my back, he stopped in surprise. What happened to you? This servant was careless in her duties. Being beaten is common. He rolled up my sleeve. The red welts on my arm were vivid. Who did this? The palace attendants said this servant was seducing your Majesty. So Lady Helena Ashford disciplined me. He gave a faint laugh. She truly is arrogant. What business does your Majesty have with this servant? He took the ointment and roughly applied it to my arm. I came to see my one consort. Is that not allowed? Your Majesty may rest assured. This servant will accomplish what she promised. It is late. You should return. He laughed loudly. I enjoy conversing with intelligent people. But being too intelligent is not a good thing. His hands suddenly pressed harder against my wounded arm. The pain intensified sharply. Doesn't it hurt? He asked, even though I already knew the answer. If this servant said it hurt, would your Majesty loosen his grip? No, that night, Emperor Adrian Crown did not leave. He said that if we were going to act, then we would act to the very end. We lay in the same chamber, dressed in our night robes. Yet neither of us slept. We lay stiffly apart, eyes open in the darkness, waiting for the first pale light of dawn. The next day, he made certain the entire palace knew I was his favored consort. It brought me no small amount of trouble. The younger sister of Lady Helena Ashford had entered the harem. I happened to encounter her in the imperial garden. She recognized me, exchanged a few polite words, and I invited her to sit for a while in my palace. We spoke of trivial things, idle matters with no real meaning, until we finally waited long enough for Emperor Adrian Crown to arrive. Lady Helena's younger sister possessed a gentle temperament. Though not as strikingly beautiful as Lady Helena, she carried an added softness and refinement, something the women of the palace could not rival. Being in her presence made one feel inexplicably at ease. Whenever she faced Emperor Adrian Crown, her cheeks flushed faintly red. She always lowered her head while he spoke, and when she dared to glance at him, her gaze brimmed with shy admiration. It was a scene pleasing to both eye and heart. After Lillian Ashford departed, Emperor Adrian Crown's expression turned cold. "What are you plotting in secret this time?" I smiled. "What does your Majesty think of Miss Hanny?" He wrapped an arm around my waist. "Speak plainly." Resting lightly against his chest, I said, "If the two Ashford sisters were to stand against one another, which side would Lord Edmund Ashford support?" Moreover, Lillian Ashford clearly harbored feelings for Emperor Adrian Crown. The plan was entirely feasible. He let out a low laugh. "If the two sisters join hands, then my harem would bear the Ashford name." "Your Majesty should not underestimate a woman's jealousy," I replied softly. "Besides, this concubine will never allow them to stand united." He laughed heartily and pulled me closer. "You are truly an interesting person." Smiling, I looped my arms around his neck. "Has your Majesty's heart been moved, then?" His expression grew complicated. "You always look at me with coldness and ridicule. Though you conceal it well, it surfaces from time to time. I am very curious. Who are you, truly?" I withdrew my hands and stepped back several paces. "This concubine is merely an ordinary woman. Your Majesty thinks too much." He knew that no matter how he pressed, he would receive no different answer. So he turned and left. "I accept your proposal. Do not disappoint me. This concubine will not fail your Majesty's expectations." After seeing him off, I stood alone in silence. Human jealousy is like a venomous serpent. It devours everything in its path. The betrayal of someone close, the indifference of someone once beloved. Either can shatter a person's reason. No matter how formidable Lady Helena Ashford was, she was still a woman. And a woman so proud, how could she endure betrayal? Emperor Adrian Crown once remarked that women and petty men alike were difficult to raise and keep. Yet he was willing to use someone like me, was he not, in truth, a petty man himself? All calm is merely the prelude to a storm. At this very moment, Lady Helena Ashford endured in silence. She still retained a shred of sisterly affection and did not wish to move against Lillian Ashford. After all, they were bound by blood, but ever since Emperor Adrian Crown brought Lillian Ashford into the harem, he lived as though intoxicated by beauty. For many days he did not attend court. He indulged himself endlessly within the Palace of Falling Immortals, holding lavish banquets night after night. The Emperor truly dotes on consort Lillian. Even the Palace of Falling Immortals was built especially for her. I heard His Majesty even painted a bathing portrait of consort Lillian and keeps it in the Hall of Origin. The two palace maids whispered excitedly, never noticing that I had been standing behind them for quite some time. I coughed lightly. They startled, turned, and immediately fell to their knees. To speak behind the Emperor's back is a capital crime. Do not speak nonsense again. Yes, we dare not. On my way to the Imperial Medical Bureau, I heard countless tales about the Emperor and consort Lillian. I wondered what Lady Helena Ashford must be thinking now. When Dr. Lucian Grace saw me, he stood stunned for a long while. It feels as though a lifetime has passed. The last time we met, you were but a maid in the cold Desolation Court. Now you are His Majesty's one consort. Miss Bai. His expression grew troubled. What is it? When he handed me the medicine, he sighed. There was sympathy, pity, in his eyes. This medicine will harm your body if taken too often. If possible, do not drink it. I smiled faintly and nodded. Rest assured. I know my limits. In this palace, human hearts are difficult to fathom. Now that you are one consort, trouble is unavoidable. You must be careful. Dr. Lucian Gray personally escorted me out, cautioning me again and again, fearful I might lose my life through one careless misstep. Even as I prepared to leave, he still looked at me with worry, urging vigilance. His concern made me feel a twinge of guilt. I needed the medicine not to drink it, but for another purpose, and yet he worried for me so sincerely. News of Consort Lilian's pregnancy soon spread throughout the entire harem. Emperor Adrian Crown came to my palace with a dark, oppressive expression. He dismissed all the servants, shoved me against the table, and spoke in a low voice by my ear. I would rather you bear me a child. Why must it be someone of the Ashford family? He was furious, not at me, but at his own helplessness. Has your Majesty forgotten? You once ordered Lilian Ashford to drink the contraceptive soup. He stiffened violently. He stared at me in disbelief. How do you know of that? This concubine is often unwell and frequently visits the Imperial Medical Bureau for medicine. It is only natural that I learned of it. His hand tightened around my throat, but not with force. It was as if he were savoring something rare and intriguing. He studied me for a long, silent moment. Has your Majesty finished looking? He released me at once and turned his back, a trace of fluster in his movements. I poured a cup of tea and handed it to him. He drained it in one breath. Your Majesty need not worry, I said calmly. Consort Lilian is not pregnant. That was merely a method I used to provoke Lady Helena Ashford. The medicine Dr. Lucian Gray and I prepared was meant for Lilian Ashford to drink. His eyes lit up instantly with relief and delight. Truly? Your Majesty is truly heartless, I replied softly. Consort Lilian devoted herself wholly to you, yet you show her no concern. He coughed awkwardly, clearly embarrassed, and shifted the topic. Recently, Julian Reed has been busy with something. I have not seen him for quite some time. It was true. I had not seen Julian Reed in days. It seemed he had not been within the palace. The next day, when Lady Helena Ashford summoned me, her face appeared pale, like someone who had just recovered from illness. Has the Emperor instructed you to do anything recently? I hesitated, unable to speak. She grew impatient. If you have something to say, speak quickly. I have no time to waste on you. I lowered my head, as though reluctant. His Majesty ordered this servant to pretend to be with child. That way, it would protect Consort Lilian. Lady Helena Ashford's fingers crushed the handkerchief in her grasp. He truly ordered you to do that? His Majesty also said Consort Lilian is virtuous and gentle, bearing the demeanor of a future empress. He favors her greatly. Lady Helena Ashford seized a cup of hot tea and hurled it at me. The porcelain shattered against my arm. Shards cut into my skin, blood immediately seeping out. Fortunately, the tea was no longer scalding. It merely soaked my garments. When I returned to my chamber, I caught the faint scent of incense in the air. It was familiar, but it was not mine. Julian Reed, I said softly, since you are here, you may as well come out. He dropped lightly from the ceiling beams. I thought you were one of the palace maids. His gaze fell upon my injured hand. You're hurt? Just a scratch. It's nothing. He drew out a portrait. It was the young woman who had once served as my substitute when I first entered the palace. To enter the palace, one needed a clean background. That girl had refused to go in. She went on a hunger strike against her family and later sought me out to take her place. My body was covered in scars. I could not pass inspection. So she used my name to undergo the background check and have her portrait painted. In the end, her father bribed the eunuchs and officials to alter the records. The one who entered the palace was me. Do you recognize her? He asked. I do. He clearly had not expected me to admit it so easily. He held the portrait awkwardly, uncertain whether to keep holding it or set it down. You have no explanation? I stepped closer. Explain what? His expression was complicated. There was pain in his eyes. They reddened faintly. Your name is Bai Qian. Is it not? Though my heart wavered, my face remained composed. Julian Reed disappeared for days, and it turns out you were investigating me. Suddenly, he gripped my shoulders tightly. Are you Bai Qian or not? I did not dare meet his gaze. I turned my face aside. I share the same given name as His Majesty, so I changed it to Qing. Is that so strange? He seemed unsure whether to feel joy or sorrow. His eyes brimmed with tears, yet he smiled. What is wrong with you? I asked quietly. Do you remember Song Jingmian? Song Jingmian. I had not heard that name in 9 years. I thought I had forgotten it. But the moment it was spoken, it felt as though I had only just called out, Brother Jingmian, yesterday, Julian Reed. I never imagined you were Song Jingmian. He lowered his head, guilt written plainly across his face. I'm sorry. If I had returned sooner, my mother would not have. I have already forgotten the past, I interrupted gently. Julian Reed, do not mention it again. He asked cautiously, do you hate me? Why would I hate you? How? Have you lived all these years? I gave a faint, humorless laugh. You truly wish to know? He nodded. I began to remove my outer robe. He startled and turned away at once. What are you doing? I turned my back to him. Did you not wish to know how I lived? Simply turn around, and you will understand. Perhaps the sight struck him speechless. My back was covered in scars. I spoke evenly, without expression. The burn marks on my back, I inflicted them myself. Why? Your mother sold me to traffickers. They sold me to a eunuch expelled from the palace. That eunuch kept many girls. He took pleasure in tormenting them in turns. My voice did not tremble. He carved the word prostitute into my back. So I heated iron and burned away that vile mark myself. That's enough. Stop speaking. He trembled as he pulled my robe back up, covering the wounds he could not bear to look at. Every time I heard the screams of those girls, I imagined that one day, you would come to save me. But I waited. And you never came. Julian Reed, I have never hated you. I was only an outsider with no roots. It was a time of famine. Your mother had no reason to keep feeding me. She sold me. I only thought my fate was bitter. I lowered my gaze, and now I must use your guilt and regret to bind you to me, to make you serve me willingly for the rest of your life. For that, I truly am sorry. Julian Reed showed me special care thereafter. Though he tried to restrain himself, in the end his concern aroused Emperor Adrian Crown's suspicion. He stood beside the bathing pool, face devoid of expression. Steam veiled his features. In the vast hall, only he and I remained. The air was so still that we could hear each other's breathing. I did not know what anger brewed in his heart, that he made me stand there so long. Perhaps it was punishment. Come here, he commanded coldly. I tried to move. My legs ached so badly I could hardly bend. He noticed my discomfort and smiled faintly. I forced myself forward. When I was almost at his side, my weakened legs gave way. I slipped and fell straight into the water. He looked startled and immediately reached out, dragging me up. The water flooded into my lungs. I coughed violently. He brushed the wet strands of hair away from my face. For a fleeting moment, something almost like pity flickered in his eyes. I lowered my head and bit my lip, steadying my breath until my cheeks flushed red. He lifted my chin, forcing me to look at him. The anger in his gaze faded in an instant, replaced instead by a layer of unmistakable desire. How easily he was stirred. I had done nothing, and yet his heart had already moved. Tears welled in my eyes, trembling there without falling. His voice grew hoarse. Looking at you like this. So pitiful. It truly makes one's heart ache. Your Majesty, I said softly, if you wish to punish me, then say so. Why torment me in this way? Then tell me, he asked, why should I punish you? I withdrew my hand from his and stepped back, my tone edged with grievance. Your Majesty always treats me like this. How would this concubine know the reason? He stepped closer. What is the relationship between you and Julian Reed? I feigned anger. Does your Majesty suspect there is something improper between this concubine and eunuch Julian? Realizing his thoughts had been exposed, he avoided my searching gaze. I told you before. Julian Reed is a man of few words, cold by nature. Yet recently he has shown you unusual concern. Tell me, why? I let a few tears fall, looking at him with wounded resentment. Eunuch Julian said I resemble his deceased younger sister. That is why he cares for me a little more. I never expected your Majesty to think so poorly of us. I lowered my lashes. This concubine is used to being wronged. It matters little. But eunuch Julian is an upright man. Your Majesty should not slander him. What I said was mostly true, with only a trace of falsehood woven in. And Julian Reed had indeed spoken of his sister before. Naturally, Emperor Adrian Crown would believe it. Once his suspicion was dispelled, there was no need to prolong the act. I wiped my tears. If your Majesty has no other matters, this concubine shall not disturb your Majesty's bath any longer. Before I could swim toward the edge of the pool, he seized me and pulled me back. Your Majesty, what are you doing? I cried. Before I could react, he dragged me beneath the water with him. I knew how to swim. But if he wished to play such a game, I would indulge him. We struggled for a long moment. He refused to release me. When he saw I was on the verge of losing consciousness, he laughed softly, pulled me into his arms, and pressed his lips to mine. Breathing air into my mouth, how detestable. If he truly desired me, I had no power to refuse. Yet he insisted on such games. How absurd. Affection was the cheapest thing in this world, especially the affection of an emperor. Power held in one's own hands. That alone was precious. The deposed Empress Catherine had longed all her life for the emperor's love, and in the end she received only death. Lillian Ashford devoted herself entirely to him, yet she was nothing more than a pawn. Lady Helena Ashford, proud and unyielding, sought only the supreme position of the harem, beneath one person, above all others, and my father. Trusted in brotherhood and loyalty, only to be forced to take his own life, his body torn apart afterward. An emperor's love was the cruelest thing of all, and the most worthless. He surfaced with me still in his arms, continuing to kiss me, even pressing further. When he forced me down again, I bit his lower lip hard and shoved him away. He inhaled sharply in pain and released me. You dare. The desire had not yet faded from his eyes, yet he blamed me for disobedience. He wished to be angry, yet could not quite manage it. Your Majesty should bathe slowly, I said coolly. Others offered him their hearts, and he would not accept them. Yet he coveted what was never his. How ridiculous. I had never intended to weave this web of emotion. But if a butterfly insisted on flying into the net, it was hardly my fault. Lady Helena Ashford remained remarkably composed. So much time had passed, yet she made no move, merely sent people to observe. Every day after court, Emperor Adrian Crown went straight to the Palace of Fallen Immortals. He even declared openly in court that if Lillian Ashford bore him a prince, he would name the child Crown Prince. Lord Edmund Ashford naturally grew self-satisfied. His attention shifted from Lady Helena Ashford to Lillian Ashford. He frequently sent gifts to the Palace of Fallen Immortals. Though Lady Helena burned with fury, she did not act. Unable to vent her anger elsewhere, she unleashed it upon her palace servants. The people of Anjing Palace were filled with resentment but dared not voice it, cursing only in their hearts. Mira, limping from an injured leg, muttered curses under her breath, until I happened to overhear. Your ladyship the Wan consort. She stammered. Mira, I said lightly, we truly are fated. Since Lady Helena had pent-up rage, would simply help her fan the flames a little higher. When I sought medicine again, Dr. Lucian Gray understood my purpose. He did not rebuke me, nor did he show anger. He simply followed my instructions obediently, which surprised me. He did not conceal his thoughts either. Miss Ching, he said frankly, you possess vision, intelligence, and courage unlike the women of this palace. I ask for nothing in return. I only hope that one day, you will remember me. I smiled faintly. If I fail, you will descend into hell with me. He smiled without concern. I would die without regret. To have met Miss Ching is already worth it. When he spoke those words, his eyes were clear, without flattery, without deceit. I patted his shoulder and said seriously, you calling me Miss Ching sounds rather pleasant. He opened his mouth as though realizing something, scratched his head awkwardly, and corrected himself. Wan consort. That very night, Lillian Ashford was seized with unbearable abdominal pain. A crowd of imperial physicians knelt outside her chambers, yet none could find a cure. Emperor Adrian Crown flew into a rage and issued a decree. If Lillian Ashford suffers even the slightest mishap, the entire Imperial Medical Bureau will answer with their lives. Every spice, every ingredient within the Palace of Fallen Immortals was thoroughly inspected. At last, the cause was discovered. The daily meals of Lillian Ashford, when combined with the incense burned in her censers, produced a medicinal effect that stimulated blood circulation and opened the meridians, extremely harmful to a fetus. Prolonged exposure would inevitably result in miscarriage. Lillian Ashford turned pale with fright, weeping like rain. Where did these incense materials come from? Emperor Adrian Crown demanded furiously. Her expression changed, and she cried even harder, sobbing between breaths. It cannot be. It cannot have been my sister. When Mira was taken away, I smiled gently to reassure her. Mira, do not be afraid. The incense you were ordered to deliver has nothing to do with you. Your family has already been settled. Lady Helena Ashford will not be able to trace this back. She bit her lip, then nodded resolutely. Julian Reed and I went to the Palace of Fallen Immortals. Using his lightness skill, he carried me onto the roof so we could observe the scene inside. Brother, I whispered, if she changes her mind, This needle must end her life on the spot. There must be no mistakes. He turned to me in surprise. What did you call me? There's no one else here, I replied calmly. Calling you brother does no harm. Do you dislike it? A faint joy flickered across his face as he shook his head. No. It is very good. Mira followed my instructions. The incense had indeed been delivered under Lady Helena Ashford's orders. Lillian Ashford leaned weakly against Emperor Adrian Crown, crying bitterly, "Why would my sister treat me this way? I never wished to compete for anything. Your Majesty, why is our child so unfortunate?" That night, when Mira was escorted away under guard, Julian Reed and I intercepted the 2 palace maids assigned to take her to prison and killed them in the darkness. We brought Mira back to my chambers. "Mira, Lady Helena Ashford will never spare you. What will you do? Please, your ladyship, save me," she pleaded, clutching my hand. Julian Reed placed paper, brush, and an already drafted letter before her. She stared at them in confusion. I held her hand and spoke earnestly. "Do not worry. Copy the contents of this letter. I will find a dead prisoner and cast the body into the lake at the northeast corner. It will appear you committed suicide out of guilt. Then eunuch Julian will escort you out of the palace to reunite with your family. After that, you may marry into a good household. There will no longer be a Mira in this palace." She hesitated, unwilling to write. I said softly, "By now, Lady Helena Ashford has surely been summoned by the Emperor. If she denies everything, disaster will fall upon you alone. As long as you feign death and place all blame upon her, not only will you be safe, she will bear the full responsibility." She glanced at her crippled leg, broken by Lady Helena's punishment, resentment burning in her eyes. At last, she nodded. Julian Reed put away the letter. After Mira left the room, he struck her unconscious. Must she truly be sent out of the palace? He asked. "No," I replied coldly. "If this matter is exposed, I will be named the mastermind behind it. The Emperor is merely using me to deal with Lady Helena Ashford. Do you think I would still have a path to survival?" Understanding dawned on him. He nodded. "I will protect you, no matter what." The next day, Lady Helena Ashford knelt before the Palace of Fallen Immortals. News arrived that Mira had committed suicide out of guilt. When Mira's body was delivered there, it was already cold. The handwriting on the letter was unmistakably hers. Lady Helena Ashford had no way to deny it. To utterly strip the Ashford family of dignity, Emperor Adrian Crown sentenced Lady Helena to 2 strokes of the rod and 1 year of confinement. Anjing Palace became as desolate as the cold palace. Lord Edmund Ashford abandoned her as well. Even the deposed Empress Catherine had not endured the loneliness of the cold palace. How could Lady Helena Ashford, proud and restless as she was, possibly bear it? Julian Reed had yet to wipe the blood from his face. He looked at me with disappointment. "In the end, you are still too ruthless. Perhaps by now Mira's family is reunited with her," I said lightly, as I wiped the blood from his face. "We are all ants. I do not wish to have blood on my hands. But to survive, we have no choice." "Little sister, it is not that you are cruel," he said, drawing me into his arms with pity. "It is that I am too soft-hearted. Still, I once hoped you would remain the kind of person who could smile despite all injustice. That girl who could smile no longer existed." Emperor Adrian Crown came to me in high spirits. But when he saw Julian Reed stepping out of my chambers, his expression turned cold. Consorts of the harem are not permitted to associate privately with eunuchs. Have you forgotten? This concubine risks punishment only for your Majesty's sake, I replied calmly. Eunuch Julian has always been loyal, yet he is constantly suspected by you. His fate is truly unfortunate. My words must have struck some hidden wound. He seized my shoulders angrily. Are you blaming me? I lowered my eyes, looking pitiful, sniffling softly. He brushed my cheek with his fingertip. Were you crying? This concubine was not. Then what are these tear marks on your face? I wiped my eyes. This concubine was merely afraid. If Mira had changed her mind that day, perhaps the one lying dead now would have been me. He paused, then murmured in a low voice, would not let you die. I pretended not to hear. What did your Majesty say? He cleared his throat lightly. Nothing. Did your Majesty come to see this concubine for some matter? At this hour, you should be by Lillian Ashford's side. She has been frightened and requires your comfort. He reclined upon my chaise lounge. I feel vexed. I came here to rest for a while. When His Majesty wishes to rest, this concubine will not disturb you. As I turned to leave, he called me back. Do you have another command, Your Majesty? His gaze darkened. Why do you keep avoiding me? You belong to me. If I desire you, you cannot escape. I walked back to him, slipped my arms around his neck, and whispered softly by his ear, Then does your Majesty desire me? Or not? He tightened his arms around my waist, pulling me onto his lap. With a faint smile, he asked, Are you sincere, or merely toying with me? I leaned close to his lips, as if about to kiss him, yet stopped just short. Whether sincere or false matters little. I am here. If your Majesty wishes it, then take it. Why concern yourself with my feelings? Desire flickered unmistakably in his eyes. His throat tightened, the hunger there could not be concealed. Just as his kiss was about to fall, I pushed him away, rose swiftly, and composed myself. Your Majesty should rest properly. This concubine still has matters to attend to and will not disturb you further. Ignoring his furious shout, I closed the door and left. I had no wish to entangle myself with him, but since he harbored intentions toward me, I could only go along with the current and make use of it. Xiao Yuzhang, I want you to watch clearly how the descendants of your house are manipulated by my hand. Since Consort Han had been confined, Emperor Xiao Jingqian visited Luoxian Palace less often, though trouble still found its way to me. Han Xinni entered my chambers, slender fingers resting upon her small abdomen, her eyes scanning the room. Sister, has His Majesty come here? I helped her sit and replied gently, His Majesty is occupied with state affairs. How would he have time to come here? She was naive, believing that Xiao Jingqian would love only her forever. In a harem filled with countless women, if each thought as she did, the emperor would be exhausted indeed. Does sister know what His Majesty likes? His birthday approaches. I wish to prepare a gift. I trouble you again. His Majesty and I are not close. I would not know. Disappointment flickered across her face. He has not told me either. Before she could finish, Xiao Jingqian entered without announcement. Both he and Han Xinni froze. She cast me a resentful glance that stirred a faint guilt within me. He spoke first. I went to Luoxian Palace. The servant said Xinni had come here. Naturally, I came to find her. Han Xinni's face lit with joy. She rushed into his arms, voice trembling, "Your Majesty. Xinni thought you no longer favored me." He stiffened briefly, then patted her back. "How could that be?" I raised a brow, exhaled quietly, and sipped my tea to steady myself. When I looked up again, Xiao Jingqian was staring at me with displeasure. I pretended not to notice. "It is nearly noon. There is nothing exquisite here. Would your Majesty prefer to return to Luoxian Palace with Consort Shu for the meal?" Before he could respond, Han Xinni said eagerly, "Sister, there is no need to go back and forth. Let us dine here." He agreed, yet something felt wrong, particularly Han Xinni's behavior. I signaled subtly to Xiao Jingqian, but he deliberately ignored me. I preferred light dishes. Xiao Jingqian ate only a few bites before stopping. Han Xinni, however, ate heartily. The food was plain, hardly delicacies, yet she consumed an unusual amount. "Haven't seen you fond of vegetables before," Xiao Jingqian remarked curiously. Startled, she dropped her chopsticks. "Light food is good for the child," she explained hastily. I patted her hand gently. "You should eat better things. My fare is coarse, even His Majesty does not enjoy it." He shot me a complicated look. "I simply have no appetite today." I deliberately left some leftovers untouched and ordered the rest cleared away. After they departed, I took the food box to the Imperial Medical Bureau. Physician Li Jinyan closed the lid, sniffed, and frowned. "There is miscarriage-inducing medicine inside." "You are certain?" He nodded solemnly. This humble official would not mistake it. "Thank you, Physician Li. You have aided me greatly." Han Xinni. Why would she move against me? Perhaps she already knew her pregnancy was false and had been deceived. Or perhaps she truly intended to use the child in her womb to frame me. She always appeared as harmless as a rabbit, but her mistake was impatience. That night, Xiao Jingqian arrived at my palace with a squad of guards. He shut the doors, seized my shoulders, and shouted, "Why would you use such a clumsy scheme to harm her? The false pregnancy in her belly, I would have found a chance to resolve it. Why were you so impatient?" I let out a cold laugh. "Does your Majesty truly believe I would do something so foolish?" He frowned. "Was it not you?" I shoved his hand away. "If your Majesty had not insisted she remain here for the meal, how would she have had the opportunity to act?" He turned aside angrily. "I did not think much of it. I only wished to provoke your jealousy." He offered no further answer, merely glared. "Han Dingshan is at Luoxian Palace. If you refuse to admit it, I will still protect you." "Protect me?" I said calmly. "If your Majesty shields me, you would stand against the Han family. Besides, why would Han Xinni seek to harm me? Your Majesty should investigate thoroughly before casting blame. If she desires exclusive favor, then why does your Majesty not grant it to her?" Emperor Adrian Crown seized my chin, his eyes narrowing, his voice turning cold. "Do you even understand what you are saying?" I met the fury in his gaze and reached up to smooth the crease between his brows. He did not pull away. "Your Majesty must not forget," I said softly, "the one Lillian Ashford originally sought to deal with was Lady Helena Ashford, not me. If I continue to be favored in the harem, her target will naturally shift to me. Then what meaning would all our previous efforts hold?" He let out a bitter laugh. "I must be possessed." I truly do not know what to do with an ungrateful woman like you. This concubine thanks your majesty for your favor. If you truly are grateful, then that would be best. After a moment of silence, once his temper had cooled, he said gravely, scheming against an imperial heir is a capital offense. Do you truly wish to confess? I leaned against his chest, my fingers tracing slowly over the place where his heart beat. Would your majesty truly bear to let me die? He embraced me and replied teasingly, merely a woman. What would I have to be reluctant about? I grew serious. But I would not bear to lose you. He cupped my face, his tone firm. I will protect your life. Luoxian Palace was in an uproar. Lord Edmund Ashford was domineering and aggressive. Lillian Ashford played the part of the pitiful victim flawlessly. I knelt upon the ground without offering any defense. When the leftover dishes, not yet discarded, were brought in as evidence, I admitted everything. Lillian looked startled that I confessed so quickly. I smiled at her. She frowned, unable to understand. Emperor Adrian Crown ordered that I be confined to the dark prison, claiming that Lillian was with child and should not witness bloodshed. Lord Edmund Ashford had no choice but to let me go. After all, I was born merely a palace maid, without background, without power. Lillian sought exclusive favor. Since the emperor frequently visited my palace, she was naturally displeased. Now that I was imprisoned, she would have nothing to worry about. Is Sebastian Ardent unharmed? I asked quietly. He clasped his hands. Missy, you have suffered. I shook my head with a faint smile. With your concern, I feel no bitterness in this prison. Sebastian draped a cloak over my shoulders. Lady Helena Ashford has written to General Marcus Hale. He will return to the capital soon. So at last. She had begun to act. Sebastian continued. The noble consort knows Lillian's pregnancy is false. I have made her believe it is a scheme between the Emperor and Lillian to frame her. Lord Edmund Ashford has also abandoned her. She must now seek another pillar to rely upon. General Marcus Hale had once loved Lady Helena deeply. For glory and wealth, she entered the palace. To avoid scandal, he was sent to the frontier. Now, a single letter from her was enough to summon him back. A man utterly devoted. Sebastian's eyes burned with resolve. When they wound each other, that will be our moment. But Emperor Adrian Crown is not easily dealt with, I said quietly. Missy, rest assured. Whether Lord Edmund Ashford and Marcus Hale win or lose, their ultimate goal is the throne. As long as the Emperor lives, Lord Edmund will forever bow beneath another. And Marcus will never obtain the woman he desires. Therefore, the Emperor will never know peace. My imprisonment was also a form of protection. While they fought, I remained untouched. The gloom that had lingered in Sebastian's eyes for 13 years finally sparked with light. 13 years of endurance. It is time they repay their debt. I knelt before him. Thank you, Brother Wei, for aiding me. He hurriedly helped me up. I have done little. It is your intelligence and composure that have aided me far more. The conflict between Edmund Ashford and Marcus Hale also follows your design. He handed me a dagger. This is the blade I always carry. Keep it for your protection. After a few final instructions, he departed. The prison guards were soon replaced. No one knew of our meeting. Emperor Adrian Crown also came to see me in the prison. You have grown thinner. He reached out to touch my face, pity in his eyes. Your Majesty lowers yourself to visit a prisoner. I am deeply honored. He laughed helplessly. You never know how to speak softly. What words does your majesty wish to hear? One arm wrapped around my waist, the other lifted my chin, so I had no choice but to meet his gaze. That night, you said you could not bear to lose me. Was that true? It was. If you were to die, how could I bear to live? Do you truly love me? If I did not, why would I enter such darkness for your sake? He embraced me tightly, whispering into my ear, when this is over, I will make you my empress. I fear I may not live to see that day. I forbid you to die. Emperor Adrian Crown. Do not blame me for cruelty. Under this heaven, there can only be one emperor. Your father seized the throne. What was taken must one day be returned. A father's debt is paid by the son. Even if I do not take your life, Sebastian Ardent will never spare you. I want justice restored to the Yi family. I want the innocence of 3,000 shadow guards cleansed. The dark prison knew no light. Screams and wails of other prisoners filled the air endlessly. Rats scurried boldly across the floor, unafraid. Slowly, I lifted my foot and crushed the troublesome creature beneath my heel. Its shrill cry of pain stirred a strange thrill within me. Its life and death lay within a single thought of mine. A little more pressure, and it would cease to move forever. Power truly can drive a person mad. From time to time, Sebastian sent word to me, tonight would be the night Lord Edmund Ashford and General Marcus Hale raised their rebellion. I could neither sit nor stand in peace, not knowing what was happening beyond those walls. When Emperor Adrian Crown and Julian Reed appeared before me, I felt a flicker of confusion. He ordered me to change into men's clothing and handed me a dagger. Then he pulled me into his arms. Do not return, he murmured. Follow Julian. He will see you safely away. Feigning ignorance, I asked, what has happened? Lord Edmund Ashford has rebelled. He did not know that tonight, General Marcus Hale had also risen in revolt. Whether the Ashfords or Marcus prevailed, in the end it would all benefit Sebastian Ardent. Your Majesty has prepared for so long. Why fear a single Lord Edmund Ashford? He adjusted my collar carefully. Even with thorough preparation, I cannot guarantee there will be no mistakes. Only if you are safe will I have nothing to fear. If Emperor Adrian Crown ever learned that this rebellion was the scheme Sebastian and I had woven together, I wonder what his expression would be. Julian drove the carriage as we left the palace under cover of night. We had not gone far when flames erupted behind us, the palace ablaze. At last, the battle had begun. Julian reined in the horses. Chinger, what is it? I lifted the dagger to my own throat. Take me back. I cannot abandon His Majesty. If he dies, then I will die with him. Shock flooded his face. So, you truly love the Emperor? Yes. Please, brother, take me back. His expression hardened. You will not regret this? I will not. From Tianxian Gate to Jingyuan Hall, corpses lay everywhere. Eunuchs, palace maids, guards. I ran without stopping. Inside Jingyuan Hall, I saw Lord Edmund Ashford on the ground. One leg severed, writhing in agony. General Marcus Hale was already dead. Only Sebastian Ardent stood unharmed. He wiped the blood from his sword, a faint smile curving his lips. Turning toward Emperor Adrian Crown, who still sat upon the dragon throne, he asked lightly, Your Majesty, does that seat feel comfortable? Adrian did not answer him. Instead, his furious gaze fixed on me. Why did you return? I walked to Sebastian's side and smiled. I could not bear to leave your Majesty. Sebastian burst into laughter and lowered his head toward me. At this point, and you still deceive him? Why not let me help you? Let him taste what it is to love without being loved. Suddenly he pulled me into his arms and sat down, his fingers brushing my cheek as he looked provocatively at Adrian. Your Majesty is truly fortunate to have such a beauty willing to live and die at your side. It makes me quite envious. Julian shouted in fury. Sebastian Ardent, let her go. And if I refuse? Jinyuan Hall was already surrounded by Sebastian's men. If Julian moved, he would die instantly. Adrian finally spoke. I never expected it would be you. I truly misjudged. Sebastian replied calmly, Emperor Adrian Crown, you misunderstand. This realm was always mine. I am merely reclaiming what belongs to me. What do you mean? Sebastian Ardent's true name was Xiao Yuding, the legitimate eldest grandson of the crown prince. Sebastian Ardent had been nothing but a false identity, a eunuch's disguise to conceal who he truly was. Years ago, Emperor Victor Crown, Adrian's father, poisoned his own father, altered the imperial edict, and seized the throne. He deceived my father into using the imperial jade seal to mobilize the Shadow Guard. In a single night, the entire crown prince's residence was slaughtered. When my father arrived, it was already a sea of blood. He secretly rescued the crown prince's only surviving son, Xiao Yuding, and smuggled him out of the capital. I still remember the first time I saw him. Though he was only a child, his eyes were filled with hatred so intense it chilled the soul. Back then, Emperor Victor Crown had once been as close to my father as a sworn brother. After ascending the throne, he granted my father immense honor. The sword hanging in Emperor Adrian Crown's study had been specially forged by Victor himself. On its pommel was engraved the character Qian. My name is Elena Yi, Yi Qian. That character had been bestowed upon me by Victor Crown, the same character borne by his own son. My father never coveted fame, yet Victor forced him to stand at the pinnacle of glory. When Victor first took the throne, he faced fierce opposition in court. He wept before my father, claiming helplessness. He fabricated evidence accusing ministers of corruption, debauchery, even treason. When Lord Edmund Ashford came bearing the verbal decree, my father understood that escape was impossible. During those years, Victor used my father to eliminate every opponent. The imperial capital became a living hell. Everyone lived in fear. Only after all dissenters were eradicated did Victor's position finally stabilize. When my mother and I returned home one day, an imperial edict summoned us to the palace. A grand banquet was held. Victor publicly declared he would bestow upon me the title of princess. That night, he smiled broadly, yet murder shone in his eyes. As the banquet began, my father dismissed me, telling me to go play elsewhere. When I returned, I saw from afar my parents surrounded by imperial guards. Victor Crown sat high above, looking down at them as one would look upon insects. Yi Yin abused his authority, slaughtered ministers, grew arrogant and conceited, harbored treasonous intent. His crimes are unforgivable. His 9 clans shall be exterminated. My father said nothing. He had trusted Victor as a brother, but to an emperor, loyalty is only a tool. Victor had used him to eliminate enemies. And in the end, every crime was placed upon my father's head. My father took his own life on the spot. My mother followed him in death. The guards covered my mouth so I could not make a sound. They carried me beneath a bridge and hid there with me through the night. By the time we escaped, the Yi family had already turned to ashes. When my father entered the palace that day, Chancellor Hawthorne had used the jade tally to mobilize the Shadow Guard, stationing them outside Tianxian Gate under the accusation of treason. They were shot down on the spot. 300 Shadow Guards, more than 100 members of the Yi family. All of them were calculated to death by Emperor Victor Crown. I fled with one of my father's guards and changed my surname to Bai. We left the imperial capital. He became a blacksmith, old Bai, and raised me for a year before dying of illness. Before he passed, he entrusted me to the Song family and left them everything he owned. But Madame Song, the mother of Julian Reed, sold me regardless. The Hawthorns, the Ashfords, Emperor Victor Crown, not one of them was innocent. The deposed Empress Catherine was Chancellor Hawthorne's daughter. When I first entered the palace, I was assigned to serve her. For 3 years, I endured patiently. I learned much from her, and I saw clearly the currents of the inner palace. In the end, I killed the deposed empress. The Hawthorne family completely lost their power. Chancellor Hawthorne had already died by then. Call it retribution. Sebastian Ardent recognized me when he came to Luoling. Many times he assisted me in secret, giving me the opportunity to save Emperor Adrian Crown when he was wounded. He wanted the throne. I wanted justice for the Shadow Guard. And the restoration of my Yi family's name. Back then, it was the Shadow Guard who slaughtered the Crown Prince's residence. How could Sebastian possibly restore justice for them, as Sebastian recalled the past? His entire body trembled with fury. He looked at the dead and wounded scattered around us, his eyes bloodshot, laughing like a madman. "Your Majesty," I said softly, flattering him as I leaned into his arms, "this entire realm already belongs to you." He listened to me and grew smug. Turning toward Emperor Adrian Crown, he said, "Perhaps your Majesty does not know. This consort Elena is..." The dagger in my hand drove straight into his heart. Warm blood soaked my hands. "Eunuch Sebastian," I cried, voice trembling, "even if I die, I will not let you harm His Majesty." Sebastian stared at me in disbelief. Blood poured from his chest. With a last burst of strength, he lunged toward me. Agony twisting his face. "You betrayed me." I plunged the dagger into him again, leaning close to his ear. I whispered, "Did you truly think I could be used so easily? Let me tell you the truth. I want the empire of the Crown family destroyed." I shoved him away. The dagger slipped from my fingers. Terrified, I collapsed onto the floor, shaking and sobbing. I didn't mean to. I was afraid. To protect His Majesty, I would do anything. "Don't come near me. Don't come near me." Sebastian Ardent was dead. The soldiers around us stared at one another in confusion. Julian stepped forward and shouted, "The rebel leader is dead. Lay down your weapons and His Majesty will spare you." Emperor Adrian Crown rushed to me and pulled me into his arms. His breathing trembled. His hands clutched me tightly as he whispered, "Don't be afraid. I am here. No one will ever hurt you again." I gripped his robe, crying helplessly, "I didn't mean to. I only wanted to protect your Majesty." He rested his chin against my head, his voice hoarse, "I know. You are not at fault." The soldiers began to waver. They looked toward Adrian, still dazed from everything that had happened. The hands holding their swords began to tremble. Suddenly, a group of assassins surged in from outside the hall. The soldiers panicked, threw down their weapons, and knelt, begging for mercy. So Adrian had prepared in advance. The leader of the assassins was Captain Roland Pierce, one of the 3 chief imperial guards. I had only seen him once before. Adrian's gaze swept coldly across everyone present. His voice was low, merciless. "Leave no one alive." The Ashford family's rebellion failed. Lady Helena Ashford hanged herself. She left behind a letter saying she had betrayed General Marcus Hale in this life, and in the next they would continue their fate together. When I awoke, Adrian was sitting beside my bed. He held my hand, relief shining in his eyes. "Chinger, you're awake. Your Majesty should rest." I am fine now. He lay down beside me, pulled me into his arms, and fell asleep. The next day, Lillian Ashford dressed in white mourning robes and knelt outside my palace gates. Yet Adrian did not kill her. Your Majesty, Lady Lillian has been kneeling for 2 hours. Will you not see her? He set his book down and frowned. I spared her life for the sake of past affection. If she wishes to kneel, let her kneel. I said nothing. He looked slightly displeased. You do not resent me for sparing her? How could I question your Majesty's decision? But I want you to question me. I trust that your Majesty's judgment is correct. Lillian Ashford was demoted to commoner status and escorted out of the palace. Midway on the road, the carriage stopped. She saw me and fell to the ground in terror, scrambling backward. If you dare touch me, I will tell the Emperor. Oh. Then you may report it to him. In your dreams. When I returned to the palace, Adrian was already waiting. You killed Lillian. His tone was calm, feigning jealousy. I said, if your Majesty wishes to punish me over her, I have nothing to say. Lillian was gentle and pitiful. I, on the other hand, am cruel. Naturally, I cannot compare. He laughed softly, and yet, I like your cruelty. Though he had feelings for me, I knew his heart did not entirely trust me. Steam curled through the bathing chamber. Through the thin red gauze curtain, he leaned against the edge of the bath, his gaze burning as it rested on me. Chingy. Have you still not accepted me? I sat at the edge of the pool, wrapped in a thin veil, turning my head shyly away. Your Majesty says this concubine fears you? Are you some man-eating tiger? Why would I be afraid? I only glanced at him once, and he swam over, pulling me down into the water. Chinger, are you angry? He asked. I felt wronged. Tears welled in my eyes. It's not that. It's just that this concubine's body is covered in scars. I feared your Majesty would find it repulsive. As the thin veil slipped away, his fingers traced slowly across my back. His eyes were filled with pity. I grieve for the hardships you have endured. How could I possibly despise you? I lowered my head. Your Majesty treats this concubine so well. Yet I feel ashamed before you. What do you mean by that? He asked. In truth, this concubine deliberately tried to attract your Majesty's attention. When your Majesty went to Loch Lang, I knew in advance. I secretly left the palace and followed you the entire way, hoping to find a chance to win your favor. I calculated everything. I am not worthy of your Majesty's kindness. His deep gaze locked onto mine. At last. I have heard your true feelings. I looked at him in confusion. He lifted my chin. I once said that when everything settled, would make you my true empress. His kiss descended. The entire chamber dimmed. At last, I had gained his trust. He gently placed his hand on my abdomen. I want you to bear a child for me. If it is a daughter, may she be as clever as you. If it is a son, may he be as brave as I. But I was Deep Tsan, not his Van Phi. In this lifetime, I would never bear a child for my enemy. I have committed countless sins. After death, I will surely fall into the Avicii hell. When Shrang my Nan saw me, fear flashed across her face. I took her hand and spoke softly. Once she understood my intention, she collapsed to her knees in terror. If there is a child, then the world will belong to the Trung family. Han Kui Fai is already dead. What are you afraid of? She shook her head violently. This is deceiving the emperor. If His Majesty finds out, we will be executed. This servant dares not. I tightened my grip on her wrist. I've heard that Lord Shrong has encountered some trouble recently. Perhaps even imprisonment. Do you not care for your father? You. How have you become so frightening? She whispered, trembling. I smiled faintly. Do you not adore His Majesty? Are you unwilling even to bear him a child? I will. Please, do not touch my father. I beg you, Your Highness. Rest assured. Lord Shrong will remain safe. Half asleep and dazed, Teukin San held Shrong Mai Nan in his arms, murmuring, Chinger. By morning, the incense in the chamber had been replaced. He rubbed his temples, gently tucked the blanket around me, and went to court. After a long wait, the news finally came. Trong Mai Nan was with child. Lai Tan Nian brought me medicine. This will create the symptoms of false pregnancy, but it will only last 6 hours. Your Highness must be cautious. Thank you, Eunuch Lai. I became pregnant. Teukin San was overjoyed and formally made me empress. After 10 months of pregnancy, Teukin San fell gravely ill. A baby's cry pierced the air. Your Majesty finally has his first child, a prince. Fortunately, it was a boy. Otherwise, I would have had to find a child outside the palace, that very night. Trong Mai Nan was sent away from the palace. The Trong family vanished from the imperial city. As long as she never returned, I would not harm her. When she left, she clutched her child, sobbing uncontrollably. I will grant him wealth and honor for life. He will never know hardship. But if you refuse to let go, none of you will survive. She grasped my hand desperately. Please. Protect him well. I took the crying infant into my arms. He is my son now. I will protect him. With his weakening body, Teukin San held the child, eyes filled with happiness. Chinger. Thank you for your hardship. Guilt stirred within me, but I had no path left to turn back. His health worsened day by day. He summoned me to his bedside, clasped my hand. Chinger. I cannot bear to leave you and our child. Your Majesty will recover soon. Tears slipped from his eyes. From beneath his pillow, he handed me the imperial edict. I have given you everything you desired. I stared at him, stunned. Tears fell uncontrollably. He gently wiped them away. Are these tears sincere for me? Why, he knew everything. Chinger, do not blame yourself. In truth, I learned of Trong Mai Nan giving birth that very night. I should thank you for leaving me a child. My throat tightened. I could not speak. With hope in his fading eyes, he asked, have you ever loved me? Even for a single moment? I could not deceive him at the very end. I only shook my head. My heart is harder than stone. In this life, I can never love anyone again. I deceived you, betrayed you. In the next life, may you see clearly and never meet a liar like me again. I deceived his heart, I deceived his empire, I deceived his very life. He had little time left. There was no need for medicine anymore, Your Majesty. Do you wish to know who I truly am? He shook his head. It no longer matters. In my eyes, you will forever be Bak Tan. In the final days of Teukin Khan's life, I remained by his side. Without resentment, he never even knew the reason behind my actions. He lived in clarity, and departed in confusion, and I became a sinner for all eternity, bearing countless lives upon my back, and a love that had once been sincere. I ascended to a throne envied by many. I cleared the name of the Yi family. I restored honor to the 3,000 Shadow Guard, allowing them to be openly commemorated. Yet I did not dare admit that I was Elena Yi. For the sake of revenge, I had dirted myself. I was no longer worthy of the Yi name. Elena Yi had died that night, many years ago. The one who now inspired fear was Elena Vale. In this world, though the surface still bore the surname Crown. In truth, it had already been changed to Vale. Julian Reed lifted the sword in his hand and said coldly, "I will silence that storyteller at once." I stopped him. I did not particularly care about what the narrator in the tea house was saying. After all, was it not the truth? Prince Alexander Crown was already 5 years old. Dr. Lucian Gray oversaw his studies every single day. Captain Roland Pierce and Julian Reed personally instructed him in martial arts. Though still young, he already understood many things. Julian stepped forward and draped a cloak over my shoulders. "Alexander wishes to go outside for a while. He asked me to seek your permission." I sighed softly, "Let him go." Then I looked at Julian, "Brother. After I die, find Clara Vaughn. Let mother and son be reunited. I do not wish to leave behind a lifetime of regret." Julian Reed nodded. After a long moment of hesitation, he finally asked, "Have you ever felt guilt toward His Majesty?" I answered calmly, "I have felt guilt." A pause, but I have never regretted it. End of story. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.